And hello, and welcome to Alex Connect Sandbox MTG Study session 59. My name is Alex, and let's continue study Magic the Gathering. Yes, today we will continue to study on sets, and in the remaining time we will play Magic Duels. So yeah, let's just right away continue. So again, we will continue to study Unglued. There's a lot of cards in here to study. Actually, right here is actually says that it's 88, but here is actually 92 for some reason. So the last card that we studied is Deadhead. Yeah, 93 even. I don't know why. Let's just get back. Oh, Too far. Too far. Deadhead. So previously I stopped on trying to categorize a deadhead. I actually didn't do so because, oh no, not deadhead, denied. Not deadhead. Yes, the next one, denied. Play denied only is any opponent casts target spell. Name a card, then look at all cards in that player's hand. If the named card is in the player's hand, counter target spell. So the thing that I need to learn how to do is to categorize them, or I don't know, a little bit much easier. So like, if I'm going to try to think a specific way of categorization, I will spend a lot of time doing it. So, for instance, previously they are pretty specific, and although I tried to categorize them as general as possible, I still didn't do a... I didn't, like... It was a bad job, I guess, doing this. So starting from this one, I will try to categorize them a little bit like more general without specifications. So again, you can play this card whenever opponent casts a particular spell. You name a card, then look at all cards in the player's hand. If the named card is in the player's hand, counter that spell. So again, it's pretty hard to properly generalize it. So probably one of the way that I could generalize it is I guess was just name a card. Like, you name a card, so first it's triggered by a card, I think. This is a specification. You play, I don't know, let's not play, just triggered by a card. Card action. It could be a play card, it could be a tap card, etc. So like, there's a lot of things. Sacrifice card, destroy. So basically any action but the card triggers this ability. And category for it could be a you naming a card, because I remember there's a lot of spells like this in Magic when you name a card, and then you can perform a specific action that involves all cards with that name. I think it's the more general way to figure out how this ability could work. Again, you name a card, then you can perform a specific action that involves all cards with that name. So in this particular instance, target opponent can't cast these spells, or we counter all spells with this name, or if the opponent has this card in his or her hand, we're going to counter it. So again, this is more general specification. You name a card, then you can perform a specific action. In this particular instance, it's counting spells, or looking at the hand. Action, either one action, or I think it could be a multiple actions. Specific action. Or sequence of actions. Yeah, I think it could be multiple actions, not just one. Because, for instance, one action is just you name it, and something is happening, and player can't cast these type of spells with this name. But the multiple actions, like sequence of actions, it could be something like this, like we have in here. Name a card, then look. So first you name it, then you look at all cards in that player's hand. If the name card is in the player hand, counter that spell. So basically these are 3 actions. So they will go into specifications. They will go into specifications. Goodish. Okay, the next one. Almost all cards, I think, are going to be triggered by a card action. This is something that I think we need to specify, so let's just bring back, try to copy this one, and I probably will paste it everywhere. So, forces target player to get you something out of the game range drink. Again, triggered by a card, play tap, etc. Card interactions. I think of course they are triggered by the cards. There's multiple cards. Triggered by a combination of cards. Combination of card actions. Tearing a card into pieces and activating in-game abilities. Yes, it's triggered by a card too. Why not? Tearing a card into pieces. I think everything has to be triggered by a card. It's kind of like, I don't know, this is like a basic rule for the most part, and it's not something that you need to be like specify, but let's put it in here. Forces you to act different. Again, if card is present or played, player acts differently. Tearing cards into pieces forces player to perform an action sequence. Let's just put this one. And this action could be different, so not only play tap, it could be like anything. So we will specify it when we are going to reread all of these things after we will finish study on sets. Okay, so put in here too. Triggered by a card here too. Actually, it's already reads. When a specific card comes into play, it can already triggers. Again, this is triggered by a card. Tapping a card. Again, the rule has to be present on a specific card. You just not like yes. So triggered by a card, triggered by a card. Okay, I will put triggered by a card everywhere. No. although this one reads that it's already have this one, so no, this is actually, I don't know, this is not triggered by a card. Yes, so like this one is already kind of reads that it's triggered by a card whenever a card instructs you to. You lose control of a number of specific card types. Again, it happens only when card says you to do so. Top card to activate this ability. Or some type of other action triggered by this card. Tap is already in here, so okay, trying to generalize these abilities. Perform a specific in-game action against opponents. When they take a specific game action themselves, unless opponents ask you your permission to take it. Yes, triggered by card, but if permission granted, you lose the ability. So it's just basically a balance for the cards to work. You can play a card without paying its mana cost when specific conditions are met. I think it's not necessarily, no, it's this one is not triggered by a card. It's triggered by a card only like by, yes, and the text in a specific card. Paying its mana cost. No, let's put it in here either way. And yeah. Let's go with this one. Look at all cards. No, we don't need this. Okay. So the next card is Double Cross. This is a sorcery. Choose another player. Look at that player's hand and choose one of those cards. Those? What type of cards? Other than a basic land. He or she discards that card. At the beginning of the next game with the player, look at the player's hand and choose one of those cards other than a basic land. He or she discards that card. What? Okay, this is strange. Choose another player, like, not yourself. Yes, so understandable. Look at that player's hand and choose one of those cards in the hand other than a basic land. So, for instance, you can choose whatever card in player's hands except for the land. He or she discards that card. Okay. At the beginning of the next game with the same player, or with not the same player, no, with the player, yes, with the same player, look at the player's hand and choose one of those cards other than a basic land. He or she discards that card. So basically this card allows you to kind of play in advance. It works in the first game, it works only in a series of games. Yes, so you play first game, you will use this card, and it kind of stacks. It's like a rebound, I don't know, ability in Magic, but it kind of transfers into the next game, and you just can repeat the same in the next game that you are playing. I hope it's not infinite though. No, it's not infinite. If it reads, if it would read that you have to play this card again, that it's infinite. But you're just repeating the process of triggered by this card. Okay, how to generalize it? Let's think. How to make it so it could work for every game, not just for the Magic necessarily. So basically, you choosing a player. This is something that definitely a thing. So again, this triggered by a card action. choose a player. Other than yourself. What's then? Then you look at that player's hand. No, this is too specific. I guess we could depict that you can do things with the player's hand. It sounds super strange, but okay. You choose a player other than yourself, and you can make decisions on spelling. Make decisions for that player. It's not necessarily like taking control of the hand, which probably Magic has, especially in the last set. Probably, yes, Unstable probably has something like this. You can take control of the player's hand, maybe even here it's present, or in the next set. Maybe in the actual Magic sets there are some type of abilities, so I remember something like this. So you choose a player other than yourself, you can make decisions for that player regarding his hand, regarding cards in his hand or her hand. Cards in this player hand. And there is a specification that works twice in first game and the second game. I don't know, I don't think that we need to put it in here. I think we need to put it as a specification, because other card that could manipulate with the opponent's hand could not allow us to use it twice in games, in 2 games in a row. So again, you choose a player other than yourself. You can make decisions for that player regarding cards in this player hand. Discarding, playing. Whoa. What else you can do with the hand? Exiling. Oh, taking control. That would be a pretty interesting thing. So basically, taking control of the player's card. Now give it, it's mine. What else could be in this thing? Okay, you choose a player, you can make decisions for that player regarding cards in this player hand. Discarding not just all cards, maybe one card, or all cards. This is because there's no balance if you can control the whole hand. You can discard it also. And specification could be we could repeat this process if playing a series of games. we can repeat this ability at the beginning of the game. No, at the beginning of the next game. If we are playing a series of games, let's call it U. Or no, let's put it properly. If series of games played, if series of games played, what? If series of games played, you can repeat this ability at the beginning of the next game. I think it could work. And of course we could go like from this, we could create other abilities based on this, which is pretty cool. Look at the player's hand, choose one of those cards other than a basic land. There's a certain restriction actually, we need to add it, because yes, let's add that it could be like certain restriction could be applied. In choosing could be applied. Okay. Certain restriction in choosing could be applied. For the sake of balancing things. Okay. Good. Continue. Okay, the next card is Double Deal. Sorcery again. Choose another player. Double Deal. Double Deal deals. That's interesting. Double Deal deals 3 damage to that player now, and deals an additional 3 damage to that player at the beginning of the next game with the player. Again, this is pretty similar, so it kind of repeats this thing. Maybe we actually need to create a separate let's just put this one in here and make it a separate ability, because if series of games played, you can repeat the ability of a particular card that was played in the previous game. At the beginning of the next game. Previous game. Okay, like of the current game. If series of games played, you can repeat the ability of a particular card that was played in the previous game at the beginning of the current game. It's a little bit different from this, but it kind of works the same. It's triggered by a card action, play, tap, etc. Certain restriction in choosing could be applied. I don't think that we need to put this one in here. performed action could be anything. Dealing damage. Yeah, performed action could be anything, dealing damage. Basically all in-game actions. Let's just specify that all in-game actions, because it could be a lot. It could be a buff, it could be a playing a certain card, discarding a card, dealing damage to opponent, one creature, all creatures, something that could work on you too, so not only against the opponent. A series of games played, you can repeat the ability of a particular card that was played in the previous game at the beginning of the current game. Pretty similar to this, but the reason why it's different because right here we playing this ability and first game, and this is like in the second game. So this rule kind of applies to the second or third game, or whichever game that is going to be after the first one. And this just applies, just basically tells us where we need to start to think about the stacking of this ability in the previous games. Yes, so what type of specifications we could add? Choose another player, deal 3 damage to the player now, and deals an additional 3 damage. Action triggered now and later and in the next game. Next game. Action triggered now and in the next game. And at the beginning of the next game. And at the beginning of the next game. Action triggered now and at the beginning of the next game. Yes. So performed action could be anything. All in-game actions. Again, it could work for anything. This is just a general specification. I don't need to go with something. Yeah, I think everything that I could do, I take from it. So 3 damage to a player at the beginning of the next game with the same player. Yeah, we probably need to specify that it has to... A triggered ability works only on the same player that we choose previously, so we can choose another player. Performed action could be anything. If series of games played, you can repeat this ability of a particular card that was played in the previous game at the beginning of the current game. So this one is not specifies that we need to choose a target player and then repeat this process on the same player. We could specify it. Action performed on the same player. Okay, how to properly create a sentence. Okay, action performed on the same player as was in previous game. Action performed on the same player as was in previous game. If target is a player. If not, it's just going to apply for the game itself, like for the world. Could be the case. Okay, let's continue. Okay, double dip. Choose another player, gain 5 life now, and additional 5 life at the beginning of the next game with that player. Again, the same. So these 3 abilities kind of work with the same lane, or with the same area. We have to play with the same player. And at this particular instance, we're going to gain 5 life. Right here we dealt him or her damage. Right here we gaining 5 life. Additional 5 life at the beginning of the next game. With the same player. Action perform on the same, not on the same, but like on the same player as was in the previous game, so as action performed with the same player in game. In current game as was in the previous game. I think it's kind of confusing, but I understand it at least. Okay. Action performed with the same player in current game. Nope. Wrong. Action performed with the same player. Action could be performed only with the same player in game, in current game. No. My knowledge of English doesn't allow me to properly sentence this. Okay. I know what I want, but I don't know how to properly sentence it. Okay. Action could be performed only with the same player in current game, so as in the previous game. I don't know. In the current game. Okay, let's rephrase it. Action could be performed only with the same player that you play a previous game. Yeah, I think that could work. Action could be performed only with the same player that you play it. Action the previous game. Yes, so it kind of works. I think. I hope so. Continue. Yeah, so in this particular instance we're gaining life. Before we dealt damage to this target player, and right here we are gaining life. So in this particular instance, we have to play against this player to deal damage to this player. But right here, in order for this ability to trigger, we need to have this player present in the game. So That's why I needed this specification in here. It's importante. Okay, choose another player. Double play. Search your library for the basic land card and put that land into play. Okay, at the beginning of the next game, do the same probably. With that player, search your library for an additional basic land card, put it into play. In both cases, shuffle your library afterwards. Okay, this is the same, so we're not going to... This is the same ability. If series of games played, you can repeat the ability of a particular card that was played in the previous game at the beginning of the current game. Yep, the same. It could be anything. All in-game actions. Shuffling, like searching for land cards, again, dealing damage, gaining health, whatever. So, okay, continue. Choose another player. Draw 2 cards. This is actually the same, I guess. Again, double take, double play. They are with the same name. Draw 2 cards now and draw an additional 2 cards at the beginning of the next game with that player. Okay, the same. Next. Elvish Impersonator. There's no words in impersonator. Okay, summon elves. This is just a creature, because before that there were no type of thing as a creature. When you play Elvish Impersonators, roll 2 6-sided dice, 2 of them, one after the other. Elvish Impersonators comes into play with power equal to the first die roll and toughness equal to the second roll. Oh, this is actually pretty cool. Huh? Get it? Elvish. Oh, pretty cool. Elvish Impersonator. Elvis Impersonator. Cool. So, how to specify it? So, we already have a couple of abilities that could work with the dice roll, but right here it involves 2 die rolls, and the result of the die roll could affect our creatures. Okay, how to properly specify it? I think something like this. So it needs to be so when a specific card is, like this action triggered by a specific card, I'm not going to write that we need to play a card for it. So it could be anything. The blind could like whatever action, but it needs to be triggered by a card. Again, playing, tapping card, putting card on a, I don't know, in your graveyard, or putting from the top of the library into the graveyard. So it doesn't matter. This is the freedom. So the exact generalization of this could be, we can, no, you roll the dice, 2 dice, roll 2 6-sided die, one after another. I don't know why this is important. Oh, that's why, because yes. So we basically rolling these dice twice. No, not twice. Roll 2 6-sided dice, one after the other, not together. First the one die, and then the second die. So this creature can't be higher than 6/6. Yes or not? Yes. So it costs 4. It could be crazy if the result of the 2 dice roll could be the double, like 12 creature. I don't think that this is well balanced thing. That's why one after another. one after the other, comes into play with power equal to the first die roll and toughness equal to the second. Roll 2 6-sided die, one after the other. We actually could create two ways. So the die at once. Oh. Oh. Roll 2 6-sided dice. Dices, maybe a couple of them, I don't know. Roll 2 6, oh come on. 6-sided die at once. One after the other, and then the creature. I don't know, like, again, thinking about creature, it's too specific. I think we could use it like not only for the creatures, and the result of the two 6-sided die could be anything. So it could be, we could draw a cards equal to the numbers, we could discard cards, we could do anything. So I don't want to specify just only for the creatures. Yeah, so performed action could be anything, and it could apply to anything. Could apply to anything. All in-game permanents. Cards, zones. Yeah, I guess we could do that. Performed action could be applied to anything. All in-game cards, zones, and also this action could be anything too. One after the other. After the other, and the result of these die rolls no, this is pretty hard to generalize actually. Kinda seems super easy, but nope. When you play Elvish Impersonator, roll 2 6-sided die, one after the other. Elvish Impersonator comes into play with power equal to the first die roll and the second die roll. So let's copy this one and try to change it in a more general way. Roll 2 6-sided dice, one after the other. Get 2 results. that equal to the first die roll and to results where one result equal to the first die roll and the other equal to the second die roll. And then we need to find a way to apply this to any in-game, like we need to find a way to see this as any in-game action that involves counting, so as thing that could be applied to anything. Applied, spelled wrong. To anything. So all in-game cards, zones, etc. So for instance, if you roll 3 on first die, you can skip 3 turns and give your opponent 3 turns. If you roll a second die, I don't know, you could split the difference. I don't know. But actually, splitting the difference is the ability that probably the last set has, the unstable. We roll into dices and we can split the differences. So, right, and that doesn't, no, not here. Okay. Roll 2 6-sided die, one after the other. Get 2 results where first result, where one result equal to the first die roll and the other the first result equal to the first die roll. It's pretty repetitive, okay, but still. And the other equal to the second die roll. But like, what we need to do with them next? Performed action could be anything in game action. I don't know, and apply action, specific action, let's call it like this, specific, and apply specific action to the specific and apply specific action to the specific in-game permanent or zone. I think that's it. I don't know, but it kind of pretty simply could get pretty complicated. If you're playing a specific action to the specific in-game permanent, it's clear. So you can distribute a certain amount of counters equal to these die rolls on your creatures, where the first die roll equals to the power and the second die roll to the toughness. You can just basically play these cards, again, all in-game actions, and they already will be equal to, will be played, or they will enter the battlefield with the amount. Yeah, with power and toughness equal to these die rolls. So again, specific action is just triggering a specific in-game action. Okay, and the specific in-game permanent is on which these things are applied, and it could be applied to anything, to creatures, to enchantments, and in any zones, I guess. In hand, in graveyard. Yeah, I think it could work this way. Yep. Okay, and the other way, if the combined result so instead we are rolling 2 dice, get 1 result, equal to the both die rolls. I don't know, both die rolls, and do kind of the same. Apply specific action to a specific in-game permanent zone. The difference again, right here we could distribute these things and choose in between. Right here it just applies with one thing. So if we are going to roll 12-12 or just 12, then we could apply this 12 to anything. And right here we kind of restricted by 6 only, and we need to choose where these 6 are going to be distributed. Like, yeah. Okay, cool. So performed action could be anything, and performed I think we could copy it though. Let's duplicate it and put it in here. Let's see how many time we left. We actually don't left that many time. Let's just establish our next card, and if it's going to be G land, this is pretty cool. Okay, so yeah, let's go with the last card. So flock of rabid sheep. What, how it translates, don't know neither of these words. Стая бедных овец. Oh, flock. Oh yeah, flock, I know this word. Of rabbit, how it sounds?
Flock of rabid sheep.
Flock of rabid sheep. Okay, understood. Flip X coins. An opponent calls head or tail. For each flip you win, put rabbit sheep token into play. Treat these tokens as 2/2 green creatures that count as sheep. So this information is kind of, don't care about it. So how to generalize it? So basically, you can pay as the cost for a card as the additional cost for a card X it's like you participating in a different in-game which involves coin flipping. Flip X coins, so if you pay 2 additional lands, you will for each flip. So you can flip twice, and you can potentially put either 2/2 green creatures or 0. Okay, but how to generalize it though? Because I wanna make it not just with creatures, but with anything. Playing spells, putting cards from your, I don't know, into the graveyard, from the graveyard back to your hand, and etc. So this flipping coin game needs to be somewhat generalized. Let's try. Flip X coins. An opponent calls head or tail. Yeah, I think you just participate as the additional cost for a card X. You can participate in a coin flipping game. I don't know. A flipping game. The result of which, come on, wait, really? Which, not which. This is constantly like I'm messing up this word always. Okay, at the beginning, as the additional cost for a card as X, you can participate in a coin flipping game with the opponent. Opponent calls when the opponent calls heads or tail. So basically you are, yes. You can participate in a coin flipping game with the opponent. An opponent calls heads or tails. The result of which triggers a specific action. I don't know. Action. Again, actions and things on which these actions could be applied. This is the thing that makes things harder to generalize, because when you have a lot of elements. Flip X coins. An opponent calls a head or tail. For each flip you win. Okay, like for each flip you win. Yeah, this is actually important. For each flip we win. Okay. Again, as the additional cost for a card X, you can participate in a coin flipping game with the opponent. An opponent calls heads or tails. For each flip you win. Specific action triggered. For each flip you win, specific action triggered. Yes. Do. And for each flip you win, specific action triggered. That allows you to do awesome stuff. I don't know, in this particular instance we are putting tokens of a creature in a game, but how I could generalize it to apply to anything, like like actually anything. Anything. Not just only for the creatures. For each flip you win, but yes. So for each flip you win, specific action triggered. Again, action could be anything, but it also specific action triggered slash and or not slash but just and or applied to anything or applied. I think that's kind of it, because this is general, like it could work for anything and could be applied to anything and or applied to. Again, applied to anything and could be anything. Okay, let's read it last time and see how it sounds. As the additional cost for a card X, you can participate in a coin flipping game with the opponent. An opponent costs heads or tails. For each flip you win, specific action triggered and or applied to a specific thing. But it's not the end. It needs to be equal to... No, actually, no. There's already specified that for each flip you win. So if we're going to win like 4 times by paying additional 4 cost, we will trigger this action 4 times or apply this action to a specific permanent we control or the opponent control or against the opponent controls. So it could be anything. So I think it works this way. Again, it probably needs to work to be a little bit more understandable, because then again, but all in all, it kind of works, I think. For each flip you win, specific action triggered and or applied to. Maybe 2 it doesn't work here, whatever. Okay, next, basic land forest G. Oh, certified G, certified forest. So what we can do with this forest? Nothing. It doesn't have any abilities. This is just a forest. Yeah, I think we actually need to end on this. This is a pretty good way to end the session, and not like the session. We need to go into magic duels now. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a 1/1 creature that counts as a chicken. So yeah, the next card that we're going to try to create for its specifications or something generalization is going to be the Tall Play. Let's make mark for it, save the project, and that's kind of it. Yeah, let's just go into the magic duels now, and the remaining time we're going to play magic duels. Yeah, that was pretty cool. I don't know how many cards I studied, but I think a little bit better than in yesterday's session or the first one. Probably because it was like a little bit easier, all in all. So like the abilities were, I don't know, worked with dice rolling, with coin flipping. Yeah, probably the first card was the hardest one to figure it out, the generalize it to a specific ability or mechanic. And magic